You don't always remember what happened. Sometimes the details are blurry or absent entirely. Sometimes what you went through didn't look dramatic from the outside, no single defining moment, just a long accumulation of small things. A household that never felt quite safe, needs that were consistently unmet, adults who are unpredictable or absent or simply too overwhelmed themselves to show up. And yet, decades later, something in you still responds as if it's happening. A short text that says, "Can we talk?" and your body tightens before your mind has processed a single word. A calm period in your life that feels suspicious rather than restful. A compliment that slides right off while the smallest criticism lands and stays for days. Your nervous system remembers what you've forgotten. And today we're talking about why. What happens to a developing brain under sustained stress? When a child experiences ongoing threat, whether that's physical danger, emotional unpredictability, chronic neglect, or simply never having a reliable person to turn to, the brain doesn't process it the way an adult brain would. Developmental neuroscientists describe what happens as a kind of recalibration. The brain, which is still forming its most fundamental architecture during childhood, organizes itself around the environment it's growing up in. And if that environment is consistently unsafe, the brain prioritizes accordingly. It builds systems oriented toward threat detection, rapid response, and survival, at the partial expense of systems oriented toward trust, rest, and long-term reasoning. This isn't damage in the simple sense, it's adaptation. The brain did exactly what it was designed to do, it optimized for the conditions it was given. The difficulty is that those optimizations don't automatically update when the conditions change, the survival strategies that outlive their usefulness. Children in unsafe environments develop behavioral adaptations that are, given the circumstances, genuinely intelligent. Some learn to monitor the emotional temperature of everyone around them, reading micro shifts in tone, body language, atmosphere, because in their early environment, those signals were early warning systems for what was coming. Some learn to minimize their own presence, to be quiet, undemanding, invisible, because taking up space attracted attention and attention wasn't always safe. Some become exceptionally attuned to other people's needs, skilled at managing those needs, and genuinely unable to identify their own. Because their environment taught them that their needs were either irrelevant or dangerous to express. These adaptations worked. They were the tools available to someone with no power and no alternatives. And for years, they may have continued to work or at least to feel familiar. The problem surfaces in adulthood when the original conditions are gone, but the strategies persist, applied now to situations that don't require them at a cost that keeps accumulating. What it looks like on an ordinary Tuesday. This is the part that often gets missed in conversations about childhood trauma, that it rarely announces itself dramatically. It shows up in the way a minor conflict at work feels disproportionately threatening, in the physical tension that arrives when someone's behavior becomes even slightly unpredictable, in the difficulty trusting that a calm period is real rather than the pause before something goes wrong. It shows up in what researchers call emotional flashbacks, sudden, intense states of fear, shame, or helplessness that arrive without an identifiable trigger. No clear memory attached, just the feeling overwhelming and sourceless that something is fundamentally wrong. And because there's no visible cause, the mind goes looking for one, sometimes in the current environment where none actually exists. These reactions look irrational from the outside. They often feel irrational from the inside. But they make complete sense when you understand what built them. A nervous system that learned during its most formative period that small signals could mean large consequences. That nervous system is still doing its job, it just hasn't been told the job description changed. What this actually means, understanding this doesn't make the patterns disappear. That requires something harder, consistently choosing different responses in the moments when every instinct is pulling toward the familiar, even when familiar means painful. It requires learning in practice rather than just in theory that safety is real, that people can be steady, that rest is not a trap, that what you need is not an imposition. None of that is quick work, and for most people, it genuinely benefits from professional support, not because something is wrong with you, but because rewiring patterns built over years requires more than awareness alone. But awareness is where it starts. The child who developed these patterns wasn't weak. They were resourceful under conditions that no child should face, with tools that were the best available at the time. The adult they became deserves the chance to build better ones.